Interestingly enough, just because someone may get 7.5 hours and another person might get the same 7.5 hours, both their sleeps can look quite different when it comes to breaking it down. So what I mean by that, one person can wake up after the 7.5 hours and feel like they're restored, rejuvenated, and refreshed. The other person who's had fragmented sleep throughout the night can feel absolutely horrible. It's not necessarily about how many hours you've spent in bed, but what do those hours look like? So when we work with people, typically we use a Whoop band, so the thing I have on my wrist right now. And I can see how this might look intimidating at first. You've got all these numbers out here. I'm going to break it down by REM and deep sleep. Has anyone come across these terms before, REM and deep? You're one does. Has anyone else come across these terms? So during the night, you go through sleep cycles. Typically, people go through around 4 to 6 cycles a night. And each of these cycles are around 90 minutes in length. They have different stages, sleep stages. So you have the wakefulness, then you have deep sleep, and then you have REM sleep. The first half of the night is more weighted towards deep sleep, and the second half is more weighted towards REM. Deep sleep is physically restorative sleep. So that's when your body's doing the deepest work in repairing muscle, rebalancing hormones, helping and protecting your immune system. So if you were to feel quite physically shattered the next morning, it's because you haven't had enough deep sleep. And that's largely the first part of the night. REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep, when it comes to brain restorative functions, when it comes to memory consolidation, when it comes to emotional balance and regulation, that's largely REM sleep, and that happens more towards later end of the night or the early hours of the morning. So everyone experiences dreams, and they wake up first thing in the morning, that sort of thing. It's because that dreaming is happening more closer to that portion of the night. And typically, what you'd want to see is an even split of around 2 hours each between REM and deep. So if you're not getting enough deep sleep, like I said, you're feeling physically shattered in the morning, and it can affect things like your immune function as well. When it comes to REM, if you're feeling like you've got brain fog in the morning, your memory doesn't work as well, or you're just not emotionally there or balanced, that's because you haven't had enough REM sleep. And there are a few things we look at as well, apart from REM and deep sleep. We look at things like sleep consistency. Are you consistently sleeping at the same times every night? Because that regulates your circadian rhythm. If you were to go to bed at 10 p.m. one night, 12 another, 1 another, your body doesn't really have a set point to go off to have a stable rhythm. And that's why your sleep can appear fragmented. Typically with the men we've worked with, we see that they have 90 minutes to 2 hours of fragmented sleep during the night, and they're completely unaware of it. So they'll wake up the next morning completely battered and drained, but not know that. So when you use a wearable, at least to understand where your baseline is, you're able to find out, okay, I'm waking up during these points of the night, and it appears that I'm not getting enough deep or not enough REM sleep. When it comes to sleep disturbances, that's typically how many times you wake during the night. Up to 15 is considered normal, but any more than that, you know there's something wrong. It could be something like sleep apnea. It could be the fact that typically having a partner or a pet or a child in the same room can also affect that. Things like respiratory rate. This is very prevalent during COVID. If you had a wearable or a Whoop, people would see a hike in their respiratory rate, their breathing rate throughout the night, 24 hours to 72 hours before they actually got ill. This is very much a preventative kind of measure where you can see how your body trends over time and what that could mean. And again, the last thing I'm mentioning is time in bed. Ideally, you want to get ballpark of 6 to 8 hours. It could look different for individuals, but around that mark is typically what we're looking for. But again, like I said, what's happening in between is what's most important. So the question is to ask yourself, are you feeling energized and rejuvenated in the morning? If not, then I'd start paying attention to these things. Are you relying on caffeine to get you through the day? These are the kind of questions we're looking at. And that was just one day. This would be the trend over a month. And this is something you could do yourself. Am I getting a rough, even split of REM and deep sleep every night? If one is much lower than the other, then we'll look at a few ways to combat this and mitigate that. And looking at things like sleep efficiency. For the time I'm in bed, how much I'm actually sleeping during that time. So that's another thing that I would be paying attention to. But this isn't me saying you should be reliant on a wearable, but this is more so if you're in a bad state, this is how you should take the first step in optimizing that.